Billionaire said, "I don't shake hands with staff." 5 minutes later, the black man pulled for $1 billion in support. The ballroom froze a moment her words rang out. "I don't shake hands with staff," Evelyn Harrington declared. Gasps fluttered through the room, soft but sharp, like daggers wrapped in silk. Marcus Reed's hand hung in the air, then slowly dropped to his side, his expression unreadable. Evelyn turned away, smug, convinced the moment had humiliated him. But Marcus wasn't staff. Not tonight. Evelyn Harrington's voice, sharp and crystalline, carried easily across the vast golden chamber of the Grand Metropole Hotel. The chandeliers overhead sparkled like constellations, each crystal refracting the light into flecks that danced across silk gowns and tailored tuxedos. The orchestra faltered, the violin stumbling before it covering awkwardly. Conversation stalled. Champagne glasses paused midair. Every eye turned, whether discreetly or directly, toward the slender woman in the emerald gown standing proudly at the center of the stage she'd just created for herself. And in front of her stood Marcus Reed, tall, composed, his dark suit impeccably cut but understated. He had extended his hand with the kind of polite confidence that suggested he expected no hostility. Yet now, as her words reverberated through the room, his hand hovered for a beat too long before he calmly lowered it to his side. Marcus didn't flinch. He didn't stammer an apology or pretend to laugh. He simply regarded Evelyn with quiet, unblinking composure. His stillness, almost unnerving in its steadiness, seemed to unbalance the moment far more than if he had lashed out. Evelyn mistook his silence for humiliation. Her lips curled into the faintest smile, triumphant, as though she'd won some unspoken contest. "Staff should know their place," she added, voice dripping with aristocratic disdain. The words were not only for Marcus, they were a performance of the investors, politicians, and magnates gathered under the vaulted ceiling. A few nervous chuckles rippled through the crowd, though most shifted uncomfortably. The line between courage and cowardice in such rooms was paper thin. Nobody wanted to risk Evelyn's wrath. Nobody wanted to risk appearing complicit either. Marcus, however, gave them nothing. No anger, no flustered retreat, just silent. Then, without hurry, he reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and withdrew a slim phone. Its screen glowed faintly as his thumb tapped with effortless precision. A message sent. Another. A secure app flashing green confirmation. His face remained unreadable, his posture casual, as though he were merely checking the time. The moment passed quickly for most. Champagne refilled. Conversations restarted. The orchestra found its rhythm again. But for Marcus Reed, the moment had only just begun. Evelyn Harrington thought she had put him in his place. What she had really done was hand him the opening he had been waiting for. 5 minutes. That's all it would take. 5 minutes. And $4 billion would begin to move like a tide across continent. Evelyn Harrington was the kind of woman who had been told, yes, her entire life. She had not built Harrington Global. Her late husband had. But when he passed suddenly, leaving her with an empire of real estate, tech partnerships, and political connections, she took the reins with ruthless flair. Evelyn was no fool. She had a sharp mind, but her arrogance had swollen beyond restraint. Her public persona crafted around the image of untouchable superiority. For years, she had weaponized humiliation. Employees, journalists, even rivals at board meetings. She was notorious for singling people out, reducing them with a glance, a phrase, a laugh that carried just a little too far. Tonight, at her annual gala, she had chosen Marcus Reed as her target. But Marcus was not the man she thought he was. Marcus Reed had grown up on the south side of Atlanta. His mother, a nurse's aide, had worked double shifts, scrubbing, lifting, folding, until her hands cracked. She used to tell him, "Baby, the world will try to tell you where you belong. Don't let it. You write your own place." And Marcus had. By 35, he had built Reed Global Holding, a tech and infrastructure conglomerate that spanned 3 continents. Renewable energy in Africa, smart city systems in Asia, transportation networks in South America. His quiet genius lay not in flashy headlines, but in long-term vision. He knew how to build foundations, literal and metaphorical, that lasted, and he knew the power of silence. Tonight, his presence at the Harrington Gala wasn't happenstance. He had come to assess Evelyn, to measure her, not in the glossy pages of magazines, but in the flesh. And now, she had given him exactly what he came for, the truth. Across the ballroom, whispers stirred. A group of investors from Singapore and Dubai, seated near the bar, exchanged glances. They had seen Evelyn's dismissal. But what intrigued them more was Marcus's reaction, or rather, his lack of one. Composure in the face of insult was strength, and strength was currency. "Who is he?" one asked quietly. "Marcus Reed," another replied. "Reed Global, infrastructure and tech." Serious weight. The ripple began. Meanwhile, Evelyn basked in her illusion of triumph. She floated from conversation to conversation, air-kissing dignitary, laughing with senators, clasping hands with celebrity. In her mind, Marcus had already been forgotten. She believed she had reinforced her dominance, but Marcus's phone kept buzzing. Soft, discreet vibrations against the fabric of his jacket. Each one a confirmation, each one a signal. London, Singapore, Lagos, Dubai, partners who trusted him, allies who respected him. His network spanned oceans, and tonight, its weight was already tilting. 5 minutes after Evelyn's declaration, the shift occurred. The first domino, a call from Dubai confirming a transfer of $1.2 billion into Reed Global's renewable energy expansion. The second, a message from Lagos confirming another $800 million earmarked for infrastructure in West Africa. The third, a discreet nod from Singapore investors finalizing a $2 billion commitment into Reed's upcoming Southeast Asian transportation venture. $4 billion moved, committed, locked. And the significance? Every dollar that flowed toward Marcus was a dollar no longer aligned with Evelyn Harrington's empire. Several of these investors had been courted aggressively by Harrington Global. Some had even attended tonight's gala to finalize talks with her. But her arrogance had cost her more than dignity. It had cost her trust. Trust, once fractured, rarely mended. Marcus finally slipped the phone back into his jacket. He had said nothing. He had raised no voice, demanded no apology. He simply let Evelyn write the story for him. The cameras, the murmurs, the glances, they had all witnessed her dismissal, and they would all remember who she dismissed. For Marcus, humiliation wasn't a wound. It was leverage. The night wore on. The orchestra swelled, champagne continued to flow, and Evelyn prepared to take the stage for her annual speech, a performance she relished, where she boasted about Harrington Global's reach and her uncompromising standard. She stood at the podium, smiling with diamond confidence, ready to deliver her gospel of superiority. But even as she spoke, Marcus could see the subtle shift in the room. Investors who should have leaned forward with interest leaned back instead. Eyes that once lit up with admiration now measured her coolly. Conversations quieted into skepticism. The ripple was spreading faster than she realized. When she finished, applause rang out, polite, practiced, but thinner than in years past. She didn't notice. Evelyn rarely noticed what didn't fit her narrative. Marcus did. Later, as the gala transitioned into its second act, Evelyn finally crossed paths with Marcus again. She approached him with that same hauteur, flanked by 2 senators and a CEO. "I hope you're enjoying yourself," she said coolly, her tone suggesting the opposite. Marcus met her gaze evenly. Very much so. For a moment, their eyes locked. Evelyn expected to see hurt, perhaps anger. Instead, she found something she didn't recognize: calm certainty. It unsettled her more than any outburst could have. She brushed it off with a laugh, turning back to her entourage. But deep down, something in her spine prickled. By midnight, the ballroom began to thin. Chauffeurs lined up outside, limousines idled, and the city skyline glittered to the tall arch windows. Evelyn retired to her private suite upstairs, satisfied with the evening. She had raised millions for her charity foundation. She had impressed politicians. She had reminded everyone of her dominance, or so she thought. Meanwhile, Marcus stepped out into the crisp night air, the faint hum of traffic below mixing with the whisper of the wind. His phone buzzed one last time. A secure message confirmed what he already knew. The $4 billion was moving, and with it, power. The game had shifted, and Evelyn Harrington hadn't even realized she had lost her first piece. Marcus walked away from the hotel without a word, disappearing into the night like a shadow. Tomorrow, the headlines would still be filled with Evelyn's glittering gala. But within a week, within a month, the true story would begin to emerge. Her empire faltering, her influence waning, her arrogance finally catching up to her. And when it did, everyone would remember the night she refused to shake the hand of the man who could have saved her. The first cracks appeared not in the headlines, but in the silences. 2 mornings after the gala, Evelyn Harrington's daily briefing with her executive board felt unusually thin. The reports were polished, the numbers still glittering, but the energy was different. Conversations lacked their usual eagerness. Her CFO, usually effusive about new capital inflows, delivered his section with a forced neutrality. A major Middle Eastern investor had requested more time to finalize paperwork. A Singaporean partner had shifted priorities toward alternative opportunity. Evelyn brushed aside. Investors wavered all the time. Money was fickle. It would return. But by the end of the week, 3 deals she had expected close had either stalled or evaporated. She snapped at her advisors, accusing them of incompetence. Yet privately, unease gnawed at her. She replayed the scene at the gala. The black man, Marcus Reed, wasn't it? She had dismissed him like a butler in front of everyone. She remembered his stillness, his refusal to flinch, the way whispers had trailed him across the ballroom. Evelyn told herself it was irrelevant. Harrington Global was untouchable, but the world was already shifting beneath her feet. Marcus Reed did not celebrate. Victory to him was never loud. It was quiet, patient, measured, in his penthouse office overlooking the Atlanta skyline. Marcus convened his inner circle. The room was sleek but unpretentious. Glass walls, shelves stacked with books on infrastructure, history, and philosophy. A single framed photograph hung on the wall. His mother, smiling in her nurse's scrubs, holding a much younger Marcus on her hip. "For Billion committed," his COO, Aisha Daniels, confirmed, her eyes scanning the latest figures on her tablet. Contract signed. Fund secured. Dubai is on board. Lagos is finalized. Singapore signed early this morning. Marcus nodded slowly. Good. Evelyn won't see this coming, Aisha added. She's still dancing in her own mirror. Marcus's lips curved faintly. Her mirror is her weakness. People who only look at themselves forget to see the tide rising around them. 2 weeks later, Evelyn found herself seated in a boardroom in London, facing a wall of frosty expression. Harrington Global's European partners had summoned her, citing urgent concerns about strategic alignment. "We've received offers," said Lord Davenport, a silver-haired magnate who had once been her strongest ally. Attractive one, from Reed Global. The name dropped like a stone into still water. Evelyn's spine stiffened. Marcus Reed? He's a startup magnate, a regional player. Hardly. With respect, Mrs. Harrington, Davenport interrupted. He's become far more than that. His vision for sustainable infrastructure and cross-continental integration has captivated markets we've been trying to reach for years. Investors see him as the future. He offers not just returns, but legacy. Evelyn's face froze into her signature diamond smile, but her heart kicked against her rib. Legacy. That word had always belonged to her. The news traveled faster than she could contain. Forbes ran a headline. Reed Global secures $4 billion in international support. A new power player emerges. CNBC airs a segment comparing Evelyn's fading influence to Marcus's meteoric rise. Social media buzzed with clips from the gala, captions highlighting her disdainful words. "I don't shake hands with staff." The moment went viral. Hashtag swarm. Hashtag handshake gate. Hashtag staff working. For the first time in her career, Evelyn was the butt of the joke. Late-night hosts imitated her sneer. Commentators dissected her arrogance as a symbol of out-of-touch elitism. And Marcus? He never commented. Not once. He refused interviews, declined statement. His silence made him bigger than words. Behind the scenes, Evelyn fought like a cornered animal. She called in favors from senators, from mayors, from governors whose campaigns she had financed. But politicians, like investors, could smell the shifting wind. Their loyalty was transactional. One by one, they grew unavailable. Even her inner circle began to splinter. A trusted vice president quietly defected to Reed Global. A longtime attorney declined to renew his contract. Every loss was a cut, small, almost invisible, but together they bled her empire. Marcus, meanwhile, expanded quietly but decisively. He visited Lagos to tour new energy grids, his presence drawing throngs of local leaders eager to collaborate. He signed agreements in Singapore that would revolutionize urban transport. He broke ground in South America on a massive port project that promised to reshape trade routes. At every step, his message was simple: inclusion. He shook every hand offered. Ministers, engineers, construction workers, children in Dusty Street. He never distinguished between staff and king, and people noticed. He wasn't just building infrastructure, he was building loyalty. The breaking point for Evelyn came 3 months later. She strode into her Manhattan headquarters one morning to find the lobby eerily quiet. A crowd had gathered outside, reporters, photographers, protesters with signs that read, "Harrington exploits, Reed build." Inside, her assistant handed her a folder with trembling hand. You should see this." Evelyn opened it. Her breath caught. It was an announcement. Reed Global had just acquired Harrington Global's European energy division, one of her crown jewels, gone, sold not by her, but by minority stakeholders who had quietly shifted allegiance. The price tag? Publicly undisclosed. Privately, Evelyn knew it had been astronomical. Enough to buy not just the asset, but the loyalty of everyone who once orbited her. She slammed the folder shut, her diamond smile shattering for the first time in years. That evening, Evelyn sat alone in her penthouse suite overlooking Central Park. The city glittered below, indifferent to her unraveling. She poured herself a glass of wine, hands trembling slightly. On her desk lay a newspaper, its headline cruel in its simplicity: "The handshake that shook an empire." She stared at the photograph beneath it, herself, chin lifted in disdain, refusing Marcus's hand. And beside her, Marcus, calm, steady, unbothered. Her empire had not collapsed in fire or scandal. It had withered in silence, undone by arrogance and indifference, and the man she had dismissed as staff now commanded an empire that dwarfed her own. Across the city, Marcus stood on the balcony of his own residence, watching the skyline. His phone buzzed with another confirmation, yet another deal secured. He didn't smile, didn't celebrate. For Marcus, victory was never about headline. It was about foundation. Evelyn had built her empire on appearance. He built his on trust, and trust once earned was harder to topple than any tower of glass and steel. He thought of his mother. Her words echoed in his mind, steady as bedrock. The world will try to tell you where you belong. Don't let it. Marcus Reed hadn't just refused to accept his place. He had redefined the map. 1 month later, Evelyn Harrington's name appeared in the press one last time, not in celebration, but in resignation. Harrington Global announced a restructuring. Its assets absorbed piece by piece into Reed Global and other rising competitors. Evelyn herself retreated from the spotlight, her emerald gowns gathering dust in closets that once dazzled red carpet. And Marcus, he kept moving forward. Not loudly, not arrogant, simply, steadily, with every handshake, because power, he knew, wasn't taken in one moment. It was built hand by hand, brick by brick, trust by trust. And it all began the night a billionaire said she wouldn't shake his hand. Like, share, comment, and subscribe for awesome and more engaging videos.